by that introduction. It's yeah, hey, it's my honor to spend some time with you today. My takeaway and hope is that you bring some practical experiences of growing business because I don't know about you, but my heart goes out to anybody that's trying to run a business because I'd like to say every one of my businesses that I've built were just rock star, knock it out of the park. I've had some failures, and man, it just hurts when you gotta dust yourself off. And so I'm going to talk to you about kind of the passion of this business, but I'm also going to hopefully share with you things I've learned. And again, I want to make sure you get some takeaways today of just how to handle this new environment we're dealing with, because it's really, really hard. And so let me, I'm going to share my screen real quick. And we're a small enough audience here so that if you have questions, please chime in, ask the questions as we're going through them, because my job here is to help you. And so let me share my screen here, and um, I'm going to walk you through some of the things and kind of walk you through very quickly in my journey, in my experiences, and the passion to help others that don't have to make the same mistakes that I've made and other entrepreneurs have made. So, first of all, I want to tell you the reason why we even started the business. Um, I sat in multiple CEO groups, and what we found is that we wanted to do something to change the odds for business owners. We want to give fellow business owners a greater chance to survive and thrive. Because, like I said, I've had some failures and I've had some great successes, and just some of those things that I learned the hard way. If we could pay that forward somehow, it would make an impact and help other business owners. So, what we're going to talk today about very quickly is that I'm going to explain to you my journey to understand why businesses are failing. And then I'm going to kind of walk you through the common threads to success. Also, how do we survive in this AI era? And then I'm going to walk you through the technology. I'm going to walk you through the technology that we are building and continue to build. And then here to help. So anything that we covered, even topics of AI, I speak all over the country on these topics. So I'll be glad to help you. Um, so, couple of things here. A lot of people, there's over 15 million companies in the US. But one thing that people don't understand or don't know is that only 5% ever get to 20 more employees, which was shocking to me. I always thought that there was all this. It's a huge number of small businesses, and very, very rarely, if you get to 20 or more employees, you're in rare space. And not only that, I don't know about you, but I've grown up my entire life, and didn't matter what decade I was in, you always hear 50% are going to fail in the first 5 years. And I've heard that consistently year after year, decade after decade. And it was like that was really bugging me in that why do we keep businesses keep, what's happening? Why do some fail and some succeed? So my last company, we got to an exit, and I spent a good year studying, was there some primary reason why were businesses failing? And so in the technology, what we try to do is say, well, why are people failing? This is the reasons, and this is the 5 stages of business growth. And what happens is there's kind of two phases. You're in the survival phase and you're in the thrive phase. And every one of those, you can still have failure points. And as much as as cash management, finding the right customers, you kept seeing all these kind of symptoms of why businesses are failing. Well, putting it all together, what we kind of found out was that it came down to when we're building a business, we just don't know what we don't know. I was kind of glad you're all sitting down because I'm just dropping these pearls of wisdom on you. But what happens is that I had the same experience. I would get to a business and grow it, and I would go, and I'd say, "Hey, this thing's growing great," and I had one that we were expanding like crazy, went out of business. I had some other ones that have gone great, and each one of those I learned as I got further along, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so you have experience gaps of growing businesses because a lot of us, we've never done it before. So, and real quickly, I'll go through this because there's some psychology behind it. And the psychology was there's phases of how we learn as human beings. And so, what I want to say, and I'll self-deprecate a little bit here. I started businesses. I started my first one. I quit Ernst and Young, and I was in my idiot phase. And then what it was is I was unconsciously incompetent. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And as I got further along in understanding my businesses, well, and again, I don't know if you've all experienced this, but then you start getting some success, and you get out of the survival phase, and you start realizing building a business is really hard. So I become consciously incompetent. I don't know. I know that I don't know what I don't know. Then you become consciously competent. I become that, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know this. And then, I think about it. And then what happens? You get to a phase where you're unconsciously competent. It's so natural for you that you don't even think about it. Like, how do you know these things? And so what we did is said, is there a common thread to success? Was there something that was a driver of why were some businesses failing and others not failing? Well, here's what we found. And I spent, all this time studying and trying to find out the silver bullet. Well, the one thing that we found that can literally change the odds of success and failure for a business to succeed was access to mentoring or wisdom. Okay, again, glad you're all sitting down here. I'm throwing these just nuggets of greatness at you here. And it's like, well, of course, if you can get access to, I just talked about the experience gaps. If we can get access to wisdom and mentoring, it literally changes the odds by 70%. There's no other thing that can literally change the odds for business owners in that one thing. And so while we were going through that, I started to realize, because here's the other thing, and the thought process behind this was that we're all on this journey. And the way I kind of look at it is that the further we can get and the faster we can get there, we're increasing the odds of success. Because I don't know about you, but every business, I never had enough money, never had enough time, never enough people, and I didn't have, and there was things where I could literally fall off and kill the business because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so then you have successful entrepreneurs, people, all this wisdom and knowledge, leadership, leadership is an example of this collective wisdom and knowledge of an experiences learned that are helping one another. But it's hard to scale because you're trying to share it and you're doing TED Talks and blocks, and it's the time's limited. And it's only limited to those entrepreneurs' experiences. So that's where we said, well, wait a minute. What is the difference now between intelligence and wisdom? This is the common threads you're going to start seeing. Is that artificial intelligence can answer any question you want. And you'll see these things that are called prompts, and you'll hear all these fancy terms for prompt. Really, at the end of the day, the difference between intelligence and wisdom is the wisdom is knowing which questions to ask. Intelligence is it'll answer, but what we find over and over again is that even though we tap into this collective wisdom, the challenge we're having is a lot of people don't know how to ask the questions. They don't know which questions they should be asking. That's where we started to drive into and finding these things like, and I've had the great honor of getting to know great business leaders that have built multi-billion-dollar companies, and some hundreds of millions, and some have been, 1 or 2 million. And here's the thing that I thought when I was building businesses, that I thought some of these things seem so fundamental that it's just me and my little business. And all of a sudden I started to meet other people, and they would go and turn around hundreds of millions of dollars companies, like literally in 90 days. And they would do the same thing. which would be don't lose sight of the fundamentals. Whether you're just starting out or whether you're $100 million, start everything you're building with a question. And it's, do we have enough cash? What does our best customers look like? What products make us the most profit? How do we compare to others? While I see that, and I know a lot of people think this is fundamental, I have had the opportunity to speak all over the world, and I can promise you, in Richardson, Texas, to Barcelona, to Sydney, Australia, everybody in the planet and every business owner is trying to answer these fundamental questions. And so if you keep sight of answering those questions, now how do you thrive in the AI era? How do I answer and ask these questions that we're working on? Well, here's the thing. And we have to learn faster. So I'm going to tell you a story. I got a chance to listen to Stephen's podcast, and a friend of mine got to know him. It's a real interesting story. And he was an investment banker, one of the best in London, at the top of the top, and he quit because the stress level of building it wasn't his passion. And he was an average piano player. And from quitting that job to teaching himself how to play, he went from not knowing that if he could even make an income being a piano player to making $50 million, I think last year, in helping others learn how to play. Okay, so you're saying, Eric, what's this got to do with anything? Well, here's the connection point, is that what he figured out, he literally quit his job, went to a little pawn shop, bought a piano, and was wanting to play right there. And they said, you can't play there. So he put it out in the street. And when he started playing, he got feedback immediately. And people gave him $25 in 5 minutes. What he realized is that the speed in which you can learn and get feedback, what he learned was that, hey, how am I going to make money as a piano player? I'm not even that good. Well, then he looked at the piano players don't make it. Well, they played one gig a week, and they would suffer through life. And what he figured out was that if I could learn and get feedback immediately, feedback loops, how am I doing? How's my customer? He would play on the streets for hours and make enough money to make what he was being paid as an investment banker. But the point here was that he was getting immediate feedback. So he accelerated his learning and feedback, and thus he was able to condense years of training and learning into days and weeks. So if that makes sense, what we're able to do now in the AI era is that we can condense knowledge and experience and feedback into literally something that used to take us years. Remember, I just showed you that kind of 5 stages of business growth and how I had to learn lessons the hard way as I went through each stage. Well, now we have the luxury of tapping into all that wisdom and knowledge. If we know how to ask and answer the right questions, you can get so much further faster. Because in today's world, to survive in the air, you just can't operate in historian mode anymore. You cannot. The things that I'm seeing are coming in so fast. You've got to be able to look ahead. You got to be able to see what's happening and learn quickly. And for those, I was at one presentation a couple weeks ago, and a gentleman said, AI is not going to replace your job. Promise you. But the person who knows how to leverage AI will replace your job. So here's what we did, and I'm going to walk you through it, is that what we said is that, hey, wait a minute. What if we could codify those experiences? What if we could take those questions that everybody needs to answer, make it affordable and fast? We could literally change the odds for business owners. If we could, and I'll tell you stories here in a second of things that I wish I would have known. If we can condense that and make it affordable, now all of a sudden we got this what we call a GPS for business. It's monitoring, it's predicting, it's recommending. And oh, by the way, you're not having to learn lessons by yourself. You're learning in a community now that all lessons are being learned and built in these systems. And now you can anticipate challenges. You can learn from other experiences. And it's not only, my big thing is that anybody can tell you you got a problem or a risk. It's what do I do about it? That's the thing that drove me crazy. Is I had all these advisors and everything. They would say, this is happening. And I'm like, great. I think I've got that. Tell me what I can do about it. And so that's what we've spent the time doing. So um, before I start jumping in and showing you some of the technology, did anybody have any questions up to this point? Did this all make sense, what we're talking about? Okay, great, great, awesome. Well, let me show you. And some of this stuff, we're going to show you the technology here, and um, and some of it's going to seem advanced, and some of it, we tried to boil down into some basic things you need to understand. But what we've tried to do is that we have this ability for you to look at your company, for example, and this is so for people that are monitoring hundreds of companies, but this is something so that if I'm running this one company, here's the thing. I need to know, and you'll see this all the way through the system. Am I likely to be in financial distress in 18 to 24 months? Yes or no? So every single month we can tell you these things, but probably the biggest thing you can see here is that not only does it identify what the problems are, but these are the things that the AI will tell you what you can do about it. And so, and I'm going to jump directly to what is more on an individual company basis. So if you're an advisor, I'll be glad to walk you through, because our whole mission is that if we can change the odds and impact advisors, we can 10x the impact of helping companies. So here's the thing I want to walk you through today is that we have a GPS where it will monitor, make sure you're monitoring the right things. It will predict what it looks like from a revenue perspective, and then it'll make recommendations. And then where you need to, we'll actually allow you to go research even further. So, and I know this, in some cases, this may seem, there's some areas in which we look at, and we're trying to answer the fundamental questions. Is revenue trending up? Is our net profit going? These seem like basic questions, but I can tell you that what's happened over the years is that what happens here is we lose sight of these things. We get so busy looking at the financial statements, for example, where you just look at one and that, are we growing or burning cash? Something as simple as that. I've seen businesses that are hundreds of millions of dollars lose sight of that fact. The other thing that we do to try and, educate and demystify some of the stuff is that as you're growing a business and you begin to build a business, everybody's going to start talking to you about EBITDA. And it's earnings before income taxes, depreciation, amortization. Seems like a fancy term, but anybody that builds a business will begin to tell you that that's what the driver of what the value of your business is. So these are the things that you pay attention as you're building these businesses. And not only that, but it's things as simply as, for example, days of cash. Why do I pay attention to it? What is it? Well, when you go days of cash, it tells you how many days you've got left. If your revenue stopped today, how many days could you survive with no cash? So you can begin to see that we try to condense things in a monitor the right things that you're looking at, make sure you're paying attention to the right things. And I can show you some other things that we do not only for there, but for customers. So say, for example, here's your predicted revenue. And so when we look at these things, we start looking at what does your predicted revenue look like? And so now all of a sudden, as you're growing your business and some of these things that your team may not know. So for example, if you know every November it's a dip in sales, well, if you know that and you communicate with your team that, then you can start doing these things that the predicted revenue is going to drop in November. Well, then the predictions are it's going to tell you that, hey, maybe we do some things preventative. Hey, maybe we negotiate some terms with our suppliers earlier. Maybe we get some customers to prepay things ahead of time. It gives you now the power to make some suggestions and some recommendations. But also, we can also look at things like, hey, are you extending? What's your cash flow look like? So we can begin to look at these things from, am I going to have enough cash? Am I going to have enough to survive? And so the things that we look at is now we get into the recommendations. And so we have a system that can look forward and make recommendations on how long is it taking to pay my vendors? Hey, this is a risk. You'll see, I've got to refresh some of this data, but you can see that it begins to tell you, hey, how many clients are we managing our operating cost? Can we stay in business with no new revenue? These are the things that we start to look at, but we also look at, hey, how's your cash flow? Now, this is an example of a company that's a couple of $1 million, but it will also, and you're going to see things weaved in here that are not just a number, but it's combined with AI insights. So we don't want to beat the drum of AI. We plug in AI where it's appropriate. So you can begin to look at these things to say, hey, we've got a cash conversion problem. And hey, here are the things that we're having trouble with. And here's what the AI is recommending that we do about it. And what we've done also is that you can see here, but there's also things like if you have businesses that run on accounts receivable, forward looking now, the systems can answer the question of, am I extending too much credit? Am I giving too much? And I tell you, this is what they call a prescriptive model. It'll literally tell you that you're in risk of your company having a significant problem if it's in this blue area. This is logic and machine learning. That this is AI that's been taught and learned across 2,000 companies of same similar size and background and industry, so that you can see that based on your sales, you can see that, hey, as long as your actuals are below this line, then you're not putting your company at risk, but you may potentially be putting at risk and not know it. And so these are the kind of things that we begin to build out. And then if you need to, then it's things like, and I'm not just showing you financials, what I want to point out here also is things that regards to your customer and your customer base. Now, this is an example of a B2B business. So they, sells to other businesses. These are the things that you can look at that really impact your business. Are we growing geographically? Are we growing our customer base? Is revenue trending up from last year? This is a combination of like years of combined wisdom from other people that literally like paying attention to your average invoice amount. How many customers do you have? Are you growing your customer base? But there's a couple of things in here that is important for not only you running the business, but it's also important from evaluation of your business. What people look at is they go, how much predictable repeat customers do we have? Okay, and here's the thing, everything I'm showing you also, um, the systems takes about an hour to connect to your QuickBooks, and this is the information you get. So also didn't want to have you go, these systems take weeks and all this. But this is just an example of how many repeat customers have, what percentage of customers. This is important to know these things because that is the lifeblood of your business. And we've had cases where a business owner would not know, they changed their pricing, and what they didn't realize is that their repeat customer number was dropping significantly, like 50%. And the sales team was out working really hard to go and replace those customers. So the sales numbers were staying consistent, but the repeat customer business had dropped significantly, and they didn't know it. And so now that, didn't know what you didn't know, once they knew it, they were able to adjust their pricing, and they saw their new customers and customer retention went way up. And so I'll stop for a second. Does anybody have any questions so far? Is this, there's a lot packed in here, but does this all make any questions? Does this make sense? Okay, great, no worries. And so we begin to do these things so that you can see what's going on with your customers, what's going on with your financials. It's a guidance system from monitoring, predicting, recommending. And the other thing that I'm excited about is we all want to know how we're doing compared to other people. And so we look at things like, hey, how's my organization doing to similar size organizations? And so we look at, benchmarking trends. Again, you can be a small 1 million or you can be $100 million company. We all want to know how we're comparing to everybody else. And so this is beginning to give you real time benchmarking and updates, so that now at any point in time, you're not having to wait to find out how your professional service firm is doing. How are we doing compared to others? It's at your disposal. Because the other thing too, let me tell you another story. I had a friend of mine, they had a plumbing business, and his sales had dropped 20%. And he was looking to sell the business, and he was concerned the company wasn't worth anything. Well, come to find out, what he didn't know is that everybody else in his space had dropped 40%. So when they went to go and get a transaction done, his business was worth 4 times everybody else. He didn't know it. And so when, having this kind of visibility of these things, and that's, later stage business, but it's important as you're building and surviving and thriving to have access to this kind of wisdom and knowledge, to know what are the right things. And then what we're beginning to do, and I don't have it in this environment, we're beginning to build what they call agents. There's AI agents. And so these AI agents, what they do is that they come alongside and they become your kind of coach. It's an AI that will answer questions, it will ask, it will suggest things. So it'll begin to do these things, and we're just testing this out. So that as you go, hey, where should I focus today? Which customer should I have a call with? It will begin to identify, suggest, and make these recommendations to come alongside like a virtual coach. And so these are all the things that are happening, and you can do it from an individual company basis, or if you're advising lots of clients, you can look at and monitor all your clients as well. So if you're in an advisory capacity, or if you're in a single company you're trying to grow, having visibility, all this information, it's game changing, because so many business owners don't have access to this. And we're working harder and harder to demystify all this stuff, but it's this kind of stuff was not available for a lot of business owners. So, all right. So I'm gonna stop sharing here and get back to kind of the takeaway here, and that the things that the takeaways I wanted you to take away today is this idea that, look, if you don't do anything, and if you just pay one thing you take away from today's call, is that the lessons I learned and other people learned is that if you can focus on the questions you need to answer, because I've sat down, and honestly, just my experiences, I've sat down with like Stanford strategy professors, and they started going off on customer concentration, and I had to stop them and go, most CEOs don't know what you're talking about. You need to explain it in something that we all can understand. And so it was like, The answer was, do you have too much revenue tied up in too few customers? And I've had friends that have gone into boardrooms and other people, and they literally come in very simply ask these fundamental questions. And you'd be surprised that we get lost in the details and we get lost in the how complex. It's not. If you stay focused on the main questions about the business, it will change the odds for your business. The other thing too, today's session's not on it, but I can show you a lot of AI tools and technology that can help you expedite a lot of things, from note taking to personalized coaching. There's a lot of technology out there that can help all of us get further faster as well. And so we can definitely accelerate the learning, scaling, feedback. There's a lot of things I can help you with after the fact. And then, the idea too is just you don't have to make the same mistakes a lot of us have made, and so get further faster by leveraging the experience and knowledge of others that we've already baked in and continue to use. You can use different technologies to get there.